Here we go. What's up? Today we're going to talk nail guns. These are the 4 nail guns that I use the most. Run through these nail guns and tell you what I use them for, what kind of nails they shoot, and when to use each one and when they apply. And I'll give you my opinion on other nailers as well. To start off, I'm going to start off with this nail gun that I first bought. This is a Ridgid 18 gauge 2-inch straight nailer. So this will shoot up to 2-inch nails. We had to take this one out of service though because we used it so much that the lever that drives the nail, it just snapped one day. And I think I know why it snapped. If you look at the back of this nail gun, you'll see like thousands of indentions. Basically what this is when we're up on a ladder and we don't have a hammer, this is our hammer. So this piece of aluminum right here, whatever it is, this metal, if we had a nail pop, which is I'll talk about too, when you shoot the nail into the material, sometimes when you don't have a lot of pressure in your air tank, that nail will not drive all the way through below the surface of the material. So what you'll have to do is take a nail punch, and you can see where our hammer was. We would take that nail punch, set it on that nail pop, and just hit it in until that went away. And then we just got reckless with this and just started using it as a hammer because we didn't want to go grab the hammer. When you're up 20 foot high, you don't want to climb down and go get the hammer. But since then, I got a little brass hammer that I use in my tool belt. So I use that now to set the nail punches. So that's that nail gun. This next nail gun I'm going to talk to you about is the same exact thing. It's basically the upgrade of the Ridgid. And I like the Ridgid nail guns. They're my favorite ones. So I'm not sponsored by Ridgid or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this gun to the air. So I'll put those in there. And then these are 2-inch nails. I got this piece of scrap right here. This is a 1x4 finger joint pine. And the reason I like this gun, and this right here is our most used gun. Like, we use this for everything. Any little trim where you don't want to have a big hole or a big indentation, you're gonna want to use an 18 gauge nail. That's just that. These other nail guns I have here, they're bigger than that. So if you want to really, I would say this is more finesse. If you want to shoot and have the smallest hole possible but the best grab on the wall, or say if I was going to put this as a door casing, if I want to shoot into that door jamb and I don't want a big indentation in there that I'm going to have to fill in, then this is going to be my go-to. So with this nail gun, I'll go ahead and shoot right through this. You can see the indentation, or the hole rather, that leaves is so small, you could just fill that right in. There's nothing to filling that in. And whenever you're shooting in trim, this nail gun is straight, so you don't really have that angled ability like these other nail guns I'll show you here in a minute, where they're angled, that's the reason why, so you can shoot in different patterns. But what you can do is you can turn it like this. So say if I have like a door jamb right here I'm trying to go into, I can point that gun up like this, and you can see how this one is straight and that one's pointing up. And then I would also point one down, and then it's what we call a V pattern. You can see how if I rotate this, you've got one straight here, and then you got these kind of making a V right here at an angle. And what that does, it just helps it's just gonna grab better. So you can see that there. I'm gonna bend these out of here so I don't stab myself. But that's what we use the 18 gauge for. We use it on crown, base, casings. Anytime we're gonna not want something, you know, it's kind of weird because you don't want any of your nail holes to be seen. But if you got something right here at eye level, like a door, you don't want to use a big 15 or 16 gauge nail that's going to leave a bigger hole. That's my opinion. So that's what we use that for. It's an all-around good nail gun. Even though it's not angled, you can still get some of that V pattern out of it where you can angle those nails. And both of these nail guns, or not both of these, this nail gun right here, the old one and this one, what you have to do, you have to push until that orange detent mar, that's that little part right there on the tip, you got to push in and then pull the trigger, and then it fires the nail. And then on the side here, we have our set on multiple nails. You can either have it for one nail or multiple nails, but we like to work fast. So what we can do is we'll just hold the trigger, and this is, you know, I'm not gonna say I really recommend this, because if you're not familiar with using a nail gun, you may want to disregard this. But if I'm holding this trigger right now, this thing will just shoot. So I'm just gonna hold the trigger down and push it against this. See, if you're holding that trigger and you're climbing down the ladder holding that trigger and you tap your leg or something, it's gonna shoot you. So you gotta be real careful with that. But the advantage of that is you can just kind of work fast. You don't have to pull the trigger. You're just, you know, pushing it into its place. Normally you would have to push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, and you know, it just slows things down. So we just boom, boom, boom. That's kind of how we work now. So that's basically it for this nail gun. It's an all-around good nail gun. Obviously it has I'm gonna set this down. Obviously it has where you can adjust this roller right here. This is gonna adjust how far that nail is driven into the material. And what it does is when you roll that lever, it moves this mar detent, and then it lets you decide like how far you want it in. So if you didn't want to move your air pressure, you can move this, but everything is basically fine tuning. Every situation is basically different. So it's up to the user to figure out what to do. I'm just giving you what I do. So we're gonna take this one out. Now the next most used gun we have is this 15 gauge angled rigid nailer. And we use this when we want to hit something and hit it into the studs, like wainscoting, or we're setting a door up and we're shooting through the jamb. So that's what we use this one for. This one has a filter on the back, so we weren't able to use this one as a hammer because it would just break this to pieces. So this, well, it's an exhaust. So when you shoot, the leftover air just comes out of there, and you can move this around that way. You know, I'm sure if you've used a nail gun before, and you shoot and that exhaust is pointing at your face, you'll get a puff of air. It's not going to hurt you or anything, but that's all that is. You can direct that exhaust just with that little clicker there. Same thing with this one. It's got either you could shoot a single nail or multiple nails. We always have ours on multiple nails. And then I forgot to cover this in that last gun, but it's the same thing. If you get a jam, this has this like latch here where you can lift that up and take it out. But what we use this gun for is, like I said, setting doors. You don't ever want to set a door with an 18 gauge nailer. That first nail gun I talked to you about, those nails are just way too thin. They're not going to hold up over time with that door swinging, and if somebody slams that door, those 18 gauge nails are not reliable to hold that door. These 15 gauge nails, they're so much thicker that you could slam that door, and this is going to hold it. This is a thick brad nail right here. And that's just different applications for this nail gun. I would not shoot this through an MDF crown. It's just gonna obliterate it. So you've got to play with it and figure it out. This is more for like, even using this on MDF is a little iffy, because when you shoot through MDF, it's so dense that it doesn't have a lot of material to displace. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically when you shoot into the MDF, the nail has nowhere to go. The material has nowhere to go. It goes right there and then it puffs up. A lot of times if you look at MDF molding and millwork, you'll see that it has puffs everywhere. There's a nail, there's a puff, and that's just so annoying and so frustrating. And a lot of times it's because just the nail is way too big. You want to use an 18 gauge to avoid that puffing and have the nail gun and the compressor to where that nail is going to drive deep below the surface. But I'll go ahead and connect this one to the air, and we'll shoot a few nails through this board. And now I will say this, there is a non-mar detent that goes here too. I don't have it on there. It is probably somewhere in the truck, but we're gonna get the same result. The non-mar detent is exactly that. It just doesn't mar the wood when you push this up against it. All right, now with this one, you're gonna see, I'll shoot it next to the 18 gauge hole so you can see just how much bigger of a hole it is, and also you can see the different size of the nail thickness. So you can see how much bigger that hole is. This hole right here of the 18 gauge nail is so much more discreet than that big 15 gauge. Either way, you're going to want to fill them, but that's the difference there. So this is when the 18 gauge, and this is with the 15 gauge. And then just looking at the nails, that nail is a lot more stout than that little nail. Like, let's do a little experiment. I'm gonna move this back and forth, and we're gonna count how many times it takes to snap that nail. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it snapped. I've never done this before, but let's see what this one does. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did it in 6, but the point is that this thing is so much harder to bend. Like that sucker is hard to bend. And then when I could bend these things all day long. They're like nothing. I could fold that one like a pretzel, but that one, that's about all I'm gonna get out of that. So yeah, that's basically the point with that, is that those things are way stronger. Now what I'll do now, I'll show you, you could see how with this angled nail gun versus that just straight nailer, how much more of an angle I can get. And that's so you can get that V pattern and you can get different angles. So I'll go ahead and shoot an angle here. You can see how much higher that went than that last time. And then I can shoot this one down. And that's a great V pattern right there. It's essentially like a barb on a hook. It's not gonna let it go. So if you can imagine that my fingers represent a material, and then you're trying to pull this out, it's gonna be pretty hard. You're gonna have to like separate that material. So that's the whole point of V nailing. And with an angled nailer, you can get a lot more of that in there. And again, just different nail guns, different applications. This is the rigid 15 gauge nail gun. Always want to wear glasses if you're going to be doing angles like this, especially because that sucker will reject. I got a story about this next nail gun I'm going to show you the next nail gun right now, but that's it for the compressed air nailers. That's all we use. That's all we need as finished carpenters. I don't use any pin nailers. The 23 gauge pin nailers, I don't even own one of those because I use the CA glue for all that little stuff. So that's it for the compressed air. Now we're going to talk compressed gas nailer. This is the Paslode 16 gauge angled nailer. And this gun, I have like a love-hate relationship with this gun. Overall it's a good gun, but when it gets low on fuel and battery, you know it because it starts jamming and it's not setting nails. So it's just one of those things where with air, you're always going to have compressed air available, but if you don't have one of these little fuel cells, They call them pass load, quick load trim fuel for these trim nailers. And then if you don't have one of these, you can't use this gun. So you got to be stocked up on these. It's a little inconvenient, not that big of a deal. It's just something else to worry about with the tool. But overall, that's how it works. It has the trim fuel. You just slide it in the back. This little lever comes down and then it's compressed. So it is releasing that fuel when you pull the trigger. Now it's not just the fuel, it's also the battery. So you've got to have the battery charged and fuel cells on hand, which can be a little inconvenient if you're out of one and the battery's not charged. So this is as close as I will get to using a straight up battery powered nailer. I haven't had any good experience with any of the battery powered nail guns. For example, I bought one of them. We bought it for a job. We had one of this, and actually I think it's when that other nail gun failed. When I broke the lever on that one, I ran to the store, bought this other nail gun that was battery powered, and it said on the box it could drive through 2-inch oak. So I was like thinking, if that thing can drive through 2-inch oak, then this is gonna have no problem for what we're doing today. Brought it back to the job site. It's jamming all the time. It's not driving nails in. We have to punch a bunch of nails with the nail punch. So I said, you know what, forget it. This technology is way too new for this electric nail stuff. I'm just gonna wait until they perfect it. And I really think without getting that puff of air, like you do with the compressed nails, or that puff of propane, which is what this is propane inside this little thing here, it's not enough to get that nail driving through that wood, in my opinion. So if you have one and you like it, then you know, that's great. But my experience with those battery powered nail guns is that they are just horrible. And all of them, DeWalt, Milwaukee, Ryobi, you name it, I haven't found a good one. But let's talk about this gun. This is a great little gun, battery powered. Obviously this is going to have a different application, no cord, so that could be a good or a bad thing. You know, the good thing about that, you could just throw it in the back of your tool belt or in the back of your pocket with this hanger, and it's going to hang right there as you climb up a ladder. One good thing about using the compressed air though is you can use that air hose to kind of like hang it off the ladder. This thing is a little scary when you're up there and you're holding this gun and you know you're 20 foot down, you might drop this thing and it is gone. Whereas with it's going to be obliterated. But if you have your hose up there, you can, you know, loop it around the ladder and you don't have to worry about anything. So just stuff I think about, you know. I don't know. This gun, we use this for small jobs. I mean, we don't want to take out the compressor. We don't want to do the whole show. We'll just bring this out for a small job. But I got some, I believe these are 1.25" nails right here. This thing will shoot 2-inch nails. And again, it's angled, so that's a good advantage with that angle you saw earlier with that V pattern. That's what you want in all of your stuff. But yeah, that's what you want. You want that V pattern. And the same thing with this gun. If you get a jam, you just pull it out, clean it out. And this gun, I had to send this gun off one time. It was jamming a lot. I tried to oil up the lever. I tried to clean this filter, charge the battery, new cartridges. It just would not stop jamming. They sent it back and it was still jamming. So what I had to do, I figured out it was not getting enough fuel because the spring, this thing is actually spring activated. So that little hose right there slides down into the fuel and it pushes on it and releases the fuel. So what you need some kind of spring action, which is this. And that's supposed to be having pressure on that right now. But the problem is it wasn't. So I put these little shims right here. These are just little adhesives to make more leverage on that hose. And it's been doing okay. Obviously that's just making it work. It's not the right way. But we'll go ahead and shoot this gun. And this gun, one thing about this gun, this sucker is loud. It sounds like like a real gun. I remember the first day I bought this gun, we were laughing about it because we went to go do some crown and I was like, all right, I'm ready to use this gun. I hadn't shot it yet. We opened it up on the job site, charged it up, and then started shooting with it. And the first shot I took, it was like boom, and then we looked at each other and like, oh crap, that thing is loud. And then the customer actually came over and was like, looking, is everything okay? And we're like, this sucker is loud. So we always tell people like, hey, we're about to use this gun, it's a little loud, so they don't have a heart attack. It's not like some military gun or something, but it's just a lot louder. I'll show you, you'll hear the difference. All right, so here's that pass load, and just listen to this. Hopefully this little microphone picks it up. We're gonna shoot it right up here. And again, this has, you can hear that? That when you hear that, you'll hear that when you pull the trigger. What that's doing is it's getting that fuel ready to send it through to drive your nail. So, and one other thing about this gun, when we first started using it, we were like, what's that smell? It smelled like gas. Well, duh, because it is, you know, that's on me. I was like, what's that smell? And like, well, there's a filter in the back here where all that exhaust comes out. And one time I was up in this little hallway just doing some crown molding way up high, and that gas actually set a smoke alarm off. So it does release a lot of gas, but it doesn't really bother me. So here we go. That will rev up when you pull the trigger, or if your finger is off the trigger and you go to push against the material, you can hear it revving up. Now what I'm gonna do is pull the trigger. That sucker's loud. So especially, I mean, out here, it's a lot louder inside of a house. Do it one more time. And you know, with these nail guns, that's a stout nail too. The 16 gauge, you know, that's pretty, it's not a 15, obviously it's not as thick as the 15, but it's a little more stout than that 18 gauge nail gun. So there's the 18 gauge just bending like a deck of cards, and then the 16 gauge takes a lot more pressure. So you can see the, you know, you got to be the judge of the different applications that you're going to use these for. All these nail guns, we use all of them, and they all have different purposes. And these nail guns, you can't, none of them, you can't just point and shoot them. They won't do that. So they're pretty safe. And if you're going to use it on that multiple nail rapid fire, just be real careful. Seems like a lot of people want to talk about guns lately. I don't know, but that's it for nail guns. Hopefully you learned something from this video, and hopefully that answers some of the questions that people have had. That's my breakdown. That's my nail gun arsenal. That's what we use. Take care.